Hi, welcome to my blog, A Chief's Wife Hearts of Fire. I'm the Chief's wife, and I'm here to show you my new project this last couple of weeks has been an altered book. I got this idea about 2007 actually, when my firefighter captain's son, the oldest son, was a senior in high school, and the class, he'd been a part of art for about 4 years then, and the class decided to come up with an altered book. They did a lot of painting on all of their pages. They made it into basically a two-dimensional diorama about themselves, adding their date of birth, what they first did when they were little, and what they wanted to do as they grew up. Now, my son added fur on the outside of his, and while it is a really cool book, it wasn't exactly my style. So I bought this book about 3 years ago for a whole buck. And it was at State Line Mini Mall. There you go, there's the plug for you in Florala. And I came across a couple of Pinterests that were Tim Holtz, and I decided this is what I wanted to do with the book. I had thought about doing this one for a little while, but I'm going to find something else to do. The reason why was because I wanted a book that was good on the outside but really old on the inside, could show a good body, and it had a nice spine it could be worked with, and the pages, while they were important and I read through them, I could cut out what I wanted, which was quite a bit of the book after I read. It was really good. It was called Albert Hubbard's Scrapbook, and this poor guy, I wonder if he really loved his mom after he was named Albert Hubbard. But what really sold me on this book, that this was the one I wanted to make, was the inside of it. There's a picture of what it looked like when it first came. You can see the indent for the inscription was inside, so I needed to cover that up because I didn't want it to be called that. And what I did was I added some grunge paper on the side of this to cover up the side name that was on there also. Now the back of it was just plain, so I just added ideology on that. But part of the draw of the book was what was on the inside. One, it had a really neat history on there. It was bought by a wife for her husband for their anniversary in 1944. And so I saved a picture of the inside page because it was going to be glued to the back. This is the picture of the man who wrote the book, Albert Hubbard. And what it was a whole bunch of poems, and the poems were right into the middle of the page, and all of his writing was on the side, which was all typed, by the way, but it was mainly sayings from people that he admired, such as Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, and there was a lot of Abraham Lincoln in there, including the poem that Abraham Lincoln wrote for his address, and that was in Saving Private Ryan, I believe. And this was a really neat historical book, but the part of it was for cutting was that each of these for the windows were all the same all the way through the book, and I thought, well, there you go, I could cut this out and still see the writing on the outside of it and put something in those as a window. And the part of the book that it was also made using the rationing of World War II. Copyright was in 1923. I thought that was really cool information about the book, some history there. Okay, so anyway, you got what it looked like at first, and what we started with was the back inside cover and the inside cover of the front. Let's see, it goes this way. I need to recalibrate my printer, sorry about that. But it had a picture in here of Ulysses Grant. And I thought, oh, I want part of that to show up. I didn't want the whole thing. But it was such a nice brown antique color that I thought I could incorporate it into my plan. And I managed to do that. Now, the only bad drawback about using an old book is no matter what you do, you're going to have some kind of paper dust around. And you'll just have to embrace that imperfection, because it's part of working with the old books. These pages were in some places they were quite brittle, and so it was easy to tear them somewhat, and you had to be really careful until you got the whole thing together and wanted to Mod Podge it. Now what I did to start off with was use the Tim Holtz Alterations Hardware Findings again. I used cardboard, just plain thick cardboard, and put over black soot ink distress, the paints, distress paint. And then put glossy accents. Here's a plug for you for glossy accents. This is probably my second or third bottle so far this year. And I've used this for everything. And I'm not kidding you, this stuff is the best glue. While it does show up as clear on some things, you can see where it came out. I wanted to really adhere it. But the point is it really stays well. I fixed one of our pool rafts with the regular cement glue that it came with. It lasted one day. I put some of this on there with the patch and it lasted the whole summer. Let's put it this way, that raft ended up in the trash because it molded, not because the patch came off. Get some of this stuff and use it. Ranger is going to get rich off of me. Okay, there's a plug for you, but that's a nice one. Now, the back of it, I put the ideology corners the same as on the front, just to save the corners a little bit from a little bit of wear. The biggest help I ever had was learning to be a librarian's helper at my son's school. They both went to the same elementary and then to the same junior-senior high school, and I worked in the library, helping the librarian for about 11 years. Doing various things with paper and books, and we learned how to fix books, so that really came in handy. So you're going to have to pick a book that's got a good spine on it, because you're going to end up gluing pages together and the spine is going to end up breaking apart, so you're going to have to use glue on there. First thing I did was I put an ideology key on here. The reason for that was it not only looked good with the lock on the front, but it's used as a bookmarker too. It just one of those things that popped up for me. Now the first thing I want to talk about is the cabinet card, because I know everybody asks me about these. I do have some real cabinet cards of our grandparents on both sides, my grandparents and David's grandparents. And I took them out of storage and looked them close up to see what kind of paper that is. Now, that back then they developed their own photographs, so it was a special kind of paper, but it was also very thin, and it was glued to the cardboards that they used. So it's a cabinet card. And part of the reason is they didn't really have a way to see these cards except to take them out of the cabinet and look at them with your hands. They also have the cards that are on the little, I forget the name of that, but you could put it on the front. I'm still looking for one of those that's good to use. But what I did was I took our pictures. Now this was taken on our honeymoon, and I told the man that I wanted a serious portrait, because I thought it would be more funny if it was serious, and it does turn out to be like that. 25 years later, we went back with all of our friends for our 25th anniversary and redid it. This one is for our wedding, and this one we were having an anniversary party together, and it was during the war, the Civil War. Now even the kids got into it, their cousin and their best friend. And then I had them put on the Civil War outfits, and they came at me with machine guns saying, "Mommy, we want to be gangsters." No, it doesn't work that way. But it was a lot of fun. We ended up going here on our honeymoon at Kings Island because it was someplace close by. We were having our reunion the next year the next week for his family, and so we didn't want to go very far away. Why, I don't know. Here we go. Their cabinet cards are easy to make, and the way you personalize them is just on your computer. Use your Photoshop. Now, I didn't use our real cabinet cards. I went online and I looked up cabinet card, and I got lots of different ones, including a real studio in Logansport, Indiana, a real studio in Indianapolis, and all I did was change the name. You can see the difference in the color where the Photoshop didn't exactly match it. It came real close though. And on this one it did match. It seems it works better with darker colors. Go through, find your own cabinet cards, make your own look. I blew this one up, yes, this one. only going the other way on the paper. This is a 5x7 one, so I took the whole page and then I ended up cutting it off for it to go this way. Now you can use real cabinet cards, end up with the pictures going almost covering the whole thing. I wanted them smaller because it would match the smaller windows. So there you go, there's the idea for that behind there. I've also got a different one here that we used about 3 years ago for this photo. And again, all I did was go online and get the one that I wanted and then make it into our own. Hodgepodge stamp it with all of your distress inks, because that's the way they look when you get them out after 100 years. There you go. Okay, now the next page is, I wanted this in basically about 4 sections is what I did. I divided it up so we had 3 sections on the front and the main section in the back to fit a lot more in there. And how to make these frames, I had to figure this out on my own with the print artist card cut. Now Tim Holtz has one. This is the one that belongs to Physics. I think they're probably the same thing now, but the Tim Holtz one comes with little corners that you can put on your artist card. I don't really need that. I've got a bunch of other dies for corners. Now, let's see if I can, I'll use this one. What I did was I put the paper onto the print artist card cut, measured how big the hole was that I needed to cover up around the edges, and then just move it up, recut it. If you do it very carefully along with the lines, you'll get a nice straight frame, exactly the way you want. Okay, now, the plastics here, you can see where the cuts were made on the windows. I made the very back of the book be the largest window, and then the others were basically the same size. Not quite. They were just a little bit shorter or a little bit longer than each other. But each of the sections, all of the windows matched together. So you've got a plastic on one side and plastic on the other, and then put all of your things in the middle depending on what you wanted to see in the front. The Tim Holtz rub-ons are in the back on this plastic. You can't touch anything. So on this side, and these papers, by the way, are off of Tattered Time. Most of this is what I used in here, except for the grunge paper and the Tim Holtz coordination papers. I just made them coordinating so that you got the same cut, the same pattern, but different color. And on this one was the same color, but different patterns. And this, on the last page, we did the same, gluing the lamppost back toward the back and gluing the 3 guys up toward the front so that they looked a little far away from the light. I had so much fun with this. I love that page. I really love those 3 guys most of all. Okay, and the last page, the clock itself is on the inside and the hands are the only thing that are on the outside of the entire thing. Sorry. The theme of it would be the camera. Everybody's been watching the Olympics the last couple of weeks. There's a commercial on there with a heart-shaped camera. I want that camera. So I instead made my own with Tim Holtz movers and shapers die. Cut out that little camera. I've got the large one too, which I love. And he also sent me the stamp for what I won with 2013 February tag. So anyway, the whole theme of the entire book is living the photographic life, being a photographer. And the reason why the lights are in there is because a photographer is always worried about lighting. Like setting up for this video took me like a half an hour to set up the right lighting that I wanted. You're taking your pictures and it's working. All of these gears took me a couple of days to figure out how I wanted to work. There's about 30 gear cuts in there, and that's using the Tim Holtz Alterations die of the gears, and also the movers and shapers one, which gives you the smaller gear. Now these little metal pieces are actually off of the real lamppost at our church that they put in, and my husband came home with a bunch of those in his pocket, which ended up in the washer, and that's how I ended up with them. Decided to save them for something and got them out thinking, oh, I bet I could use glossy accents, and put those right there. That looks smashing. Love it. The Apothecary jar die The whole thing would be, as you're taking pictures with love, you're saving memories, and this is the love in the bottle. You're actually capturing love as well as picturing it, and it creates happiness. Now, the whole part of being a photographer is for all of the shoots that you do and all of the things that you're involving. My thought was, I'm always getting people I don't know into the backgrounds. It's just the way a photographer thinks, and I had so much fun making this book. Now, this paper here is out of the same tattered time, only the 12 by 12. There you go. That's an altered book. I hope you'll find one and give it a try for yourself. Thanks, and I'll see you again.